everyone, and welcome to the Sound Mind podcast, where we dive into the fascinating world of music psychology. I'm your host, Sophia, and as a music psychologist, I'll be guiding you through everything you've ever wondered about music. So, whether you're a music lover or are just interested in the science of sound, you're in the right place, so stick around. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm a lyrics person. Have you ever had a lyric just stop you in your tracks? The kind of line that feels like it was just written for you. It just puts your feelings into words better than you ever could. Lyrics have this unique power. They can comfort us, break our hearts, bring back memories, or just unite thousands of people singing the same words together at a concert. But maybe you're one of those people that don't notice the lyrics so much. For some, it's all about the music. And as someone who is a lyrics person, this has also just completely fascinated me. So in this episode, we're diving into the world of lyrics, why they matter, what makes them stick in our minds, and how they shape the way that we connect with music and to each other. From unforgettable one-liners to songs that define entire chapters of our lives, we're going to explore the magic of words in music. So let's get into it. So when we listen to music, it's easy to think that we're being just swept away by the melody, the rhythm, or even the beat. And often that's true, but for many people, it's the lyrics that make a song truly stick. Words really give music shape, meaning, and personal resonance, and I honestly think that that's one of the most powerful qualities of music in itself. They allow us to project our own stories onto songs, and in doing so, they become part of our emotional lives. Now, one of the most powerful functions of lyrics is that they help us express who we are. Sometimes this happens in private, through headphones, playlists, or even journaling. And other times it's outwards. Maybe it's the lyrics that you post as a caption on Instagram, or the anthems that you belt out at concerts. Think about the teenager blasting a song about rebellion, or someone going through a heartbreak, replaying a ballad that perfectly captures their pain. Lyrics become a language for feelings that we can't always articulate ourselves. When the words aren't there, the song provides them for us. Research has shown that people use music as a form of identity construction. One early study done by North and Hargreaves in 1999 found that young people in particular use music, and by extension, lyrics, as a way to signal identity to other people. Think about lyrics on a t-shirt or a shared playlist. It isn't just about taste in music. It's a statement. This is who I am, this is what I believe, and this is what I've been through. And that's why we cling to what we call our songs. They're not just catchy tunes, they're literally reflections of our inner world. They're like mirrors, showing us pieces of ourselves that we might struggle to put into words otherwise. And once we find a lyric that says it for us, that song becomes so deeply personal. For example, think about one of the most iconic breakup songs of all time, Someone Like You by Adele. When you hear her sing, "Sometimes it lasts in love, but sometimes it hurts instead," it might not just be Adele's heartbreak that you're hearing. It's your own past relationship, your own emotional history. Lyrics let us borrow someone else's words to narrate our own lives, and I just absolutely love that about music. And you know what? Humans, they're wired for stories. Long before books, films, or even podcasts, storytelling was how knowledge and culture was passed down around campfires, in myths, through these oral traditions. And we don't just enjoy stories, we actually need them. They give structure to experience and meaning to memory. Lyrics actually tap into that same evolutionary pull. And a good song tells a story, whether it's a clear, linear narrative or even just a fragmented emotional snapshot. Some songs, they can build entire worlds, characters, and arcs, while others capture fleeting impressions or these emotional fragments that still feel somewhat like a story. But what makes storytelling in lyrics so powerful is its ability to let us experience lives beyond our own. Stories in music help us empathize with experiences that we may never live ourselves. You don't have to go through heartbreak, political struggle, or personal triumph to feel those emotions when you hear them being expressed in a song. Lyrics function like a bridge, transporting us to other realities and just allowing us to feel what others feel. Think back to when we were kids and our parents would tell us stories, these stories that are passed through cultures, through generations, and they taught us about different morals, about life, about things that we don't necessarily have to go through to learn the lesson or experience the feelings, but just to be immersed in that story. It's an incredible part of human experience. Even thinking about such iconic movies like Marvel, DC, Disney, they put us in these immersive storylines that just get us hooked. And that's part of our love for cinema, for art, for music. They pull us into these incredibly immersive and entertaining and beautiful stories that we don't have a chance to experience necessarily in our everyday lives. And neuroscience research backs this up. So when we engage with stories, our brains release oxytocin, which is a hormone strongly linked to empathy, trust, and social bonding. In other words, when lyrics tell a story, they don't just entertain us. They literally alter our brain chemistry to make us feel more connected to the singer, the characters, and even the wider community who shares in that song. And this is why certain story-driven songs become cultural touchstones. Narratives expressed through lyrics, they don't just belong to the songwriter. Once they're released, they're almost co-owned by listeners who project their own meaning onto them. And in doing so, a story told by one person can resonate across thousands or even millions of lives. And on a psychological level, lyrical stories also help us make sense of our own lives. Humans are often described as narrative beings, meaning that we don't just experience events, we actually organize them into stories. And lyrics feed into that natural process, giving us metaphors, arcs, and language that help us process our own experiences. Sometimes, when our own lives feel chaotic or directionless, lyrics can provide the clarity or coherence that we can't yet find ourselves. So, when we talk about lyrics as storytelling, we're not just talking about entertainment. We're talking about one of the oldest human technologies for connection, empathy, and meaning making, condensed into 3 verses and a chorus. Well, typically, anyway. Music is often described as medicine for the soul, and lyrics really play a huge role in that healing process. Beyond melody and rhythm, words give our emotional experiences shape and meaning. They allow us to not only feel, but also articulate what's happening inside. We often turn to songs as tools for emotional regulation, using them almost like a self-prescribed therapy session. I know I definitely do that. And research has identified several ways that people use music for this purpose. Some listen to shift their attention away from problems, focusing on the music rather than their worries. Others use songs to release strong feelings, so allowing them to express anger, sadness, or frustration through lyrics that articulate emotions that they might not otherwise be able to say. Music can also be energizing or restorative. Powerful words and themes in lyrics help listeners feel motivated, revitalized, and ready to face challenges. Now, I did touch on these mechanisms in last week's episode as well, talking about how we use music to regulate our mood and vice versa. But lyrics, they really do intensify all of these effects because they allow us to anchor our feelings in language. A sad melody alone might stir up tears, but pairing that melody with lyrics about heartbreak, loss, or longing, it can validate your experience. And that validation is super powerful. It reassures us that we're not alone in what we're feeling and that others have been there too. From a neuroscience perspective, this works because language and emotion are tightly connected in the brain. When we hear words that match our inner state, the brain activates regions involved in both self-referential processing and empathy. In other words, lyrics don't just evoke emotions, they help us process them. And this processing can feel deeply therapeutic. People often describe the experience of listening to certain lyrics as cathartic. It's a safe way to release emotions that might otherwise remain bottled up. And at the same time, uplifting or empowering lyrics can act almost like affirmations, reinforcing positive emotions and motivating us to move forward. In short, lyrics act as a kind of emotional toolkit. They help us express, release, and reshape our feelings, making music not just entertainment, but quite literally one of the most accessible forms of self-regulation that we have. But as we know, not every lyric resonates equally. We might skim over one line in a song without much thought, only for another one to hit us like a punch in the chest. But why does this happen? Well, the answer lies in personal relevance. Psychologists refer to this as the self-reference effect, meaning that we process and remember information more deeply when it connects to ourselves. So when a lyric mirrors our own experience, like falling in love, experiencing loss, discovering hope, or just navigating personal growth, it becomes more than words. It becomes part of our inner narrative. The brain basically tags these lyrics as meaningful, making them easier to recall and more emotionally impactful overall. And this is why certain songs or lines can feel like they were written just for us. They act as vessels for our emotions, reflecting our inner thoughts and feelings. Because of this, we often return to the same songs during key moments in life. Weddings, breakups, funerals, moments of triumph. Lyrics don't just accompany these events, they literally anchor our autobiographical memories, helping us relive, process, and make sense of our experiences. Research in music psychology supports this. Studies have found that emotionally meaningful lyrics enhance memory recall and emotional engagement more than neutral or abstract lyrics. So, in other words, when lyrics resonate with our own experiences, they literally embed themselves into our personal history. Beyond memory, personal relevance gives lyrics psychological power. They provide a language for emotions that we might struggle to articulate, allowing us to step into stories that expand our empathy and reflect facets of our identity back to us. In this way, lyrics do so much more than complement melody. They function as tools for emotional expression, self-understanding, and social connection. We listen to lyrics because they give us words for our emotions, stories that we can inhabit, and mirrors for our identity. They help us regulate how we feel, make sense of life's complexities, and leave these lasting imprints on our memory. And what's so fascinating is, neuroscience research shows that listening to meaningful words in music activates not only language processing regions like the Broca's and Wernicke's areas, but also emotion-related areas such as the amygdala, ventral striatum, and orbitofrontal cortex. This overlap explains why lyrics can make us feel so deeply. Our brains are simultaneously decoding language and experiencing emotional resonance. But interestingly, melody and lyrics engage different neural pathways, but they also interact. Melody often captures attention first, activating auditory and reward circuits, while lyrics, they add meaning and emotional context, creating this rich, integrated, cognitive emotional experience. And this is why songs with memorable lyrics and a catchy tune are so sticky. They engage multiple brain systems all at once. And this neural synergy also has practical implications. Studies have shown that turning information into a song can seriously enhance memory and learning. For example, students often remember study materials more effectively when it's set to a tune, because the combination of rhythm, melody, and meaningful words strengthens encoding in memory networks. The brain's connection to lyrics is especially remarkable in dementia and Alzheimer's research. Even when patients have lost the ability to recall recent events or long-term events and conversations, many can still sing along to songs from their youth. It's absolutely phenomenal. Singing appears to tap into preserved neural circuits for language, melody, and memory simultaneously, allowing music to bypass some cognitive impairments. This demonstrates that lyrics are not just entertainment. They're so deeply intertwined with memory, emotion, and identity in the brain. So, in short, neuroscience shows that lyrics are powerful because they bridge language and emotion, making words more memorable, meaningful, and emotionally resonant. From memorizing facts to evoking lost memories, the brain treats lyrics as more than just speech. They're a tool for connection, learning, and emotional engagement. So, when you listen to a song, what tends to grab you first? Is it the melody or the lyrics? Well, research actually does suggest that melody often hits us before lyrics do. The initial pull of a song is usually the musical arrangement, the rhythm, harmony, or the catchy tune that just draws our attention in seconds. Lyrics, in this sense, they often act as a second hook. So once the music has captured us, the words add depth, meaning, and personal resonance. They enhance the emotional and cognitive impact, giving the listener something to hold on to and reflect upon. For me, honestly, if the lyrics are bad, it's a no from me. I seriously cannot ignore lyrics. I'm one of those people that just instantly listens to them, starts to process them, and yeah, if they don't make sense or if they don't match up, most likely I'm not going to be vibing with that song. But interestingly, not all listeners prioritize lyrics equally. Actually, one thing that complicates the relationship between music and lyrics is the vocal delivery. Studies show that intonation and emotional tone can actually override semantic content. So, for instance, a line that's sung neutrally, but maybe with sadness in the voice, can make the listener still feel sad. A 2025 study found that vocal tone influences emotional response more strongly than the literal meaning of lyrics, even when the melody is stripped away. Simply hearing whether a voice sounds happy or sad can sway our emotions more than actually understanding the words themselves. And this kind of explains one of the most fascinating aspects of lyrics, that emotional connection does not always depend on understanding the lyrics. People across cultures often respond deeply to songs in languages that they don't speak. The melody, rhythm, and vocal delivery carry emotional cues that are universal. A soaring chorus can inspire joy, and a slow minor key verse can evoke sadness. And subtle shifts in tempo or intensity, they can create tension or release without language. So while lyrics provide semantic meaning, they're actually just one channel of emotional information. Even without comprehension, listeners can feel moved, uplifted, or comforted. The emotional expression in the voice and melody often speaks a universal language that resonates with human perception, regardless of cultural or linguistic background. This shows that music is a universal language, and lyrics, while powerful, they're not always the primary vehicle for emotional engagement. And this explains why people can bond over global hits, enjoy operas in foreign languages, or dance to songs that they don't understand. Music becomes a shared emotional experience, and the emotional power of music can operate independently of language. So, lyrics and melody work together, but they serve slightly different functions. Melody grabs attention, sets mood, and creates immediate emotional impact, while lyrics, they deepen meaning, allowing for personal connection and provide narrative or thematic hooks. Yet the how of singing, the intonation, phrasing, and emotional delivery can often be even more influential than the words, showing that music is just as much about expression as it is about content. Now, interestingly, individuals with higher levels of emotional sensitivity or those who are more introspective often find deeper meaning in lyrics. These listeners may use music as a tool for emotional processing, seeking out songs whose lyrics resonate with their personal experiences. So, for example, there was a study that found that people at risk for depression tend to prefer songs with more complex and emotionally rich lyrics. And this preference suggests that such individuals may use music to navigate and understand their emotions. Some research actually also points to subtle but still there demographic patterns. So, for instance, some survey data suggests that women are slightly more likely than men to prioritize lyrics, whereas men may focus more on melody or rhythm. Now, these differences are small, but they do indicate that social and cultural factors could influence how people engage with music. And music genre also significantly shapes what listeners pay attention to. Genres that traditionally emphasize storytelling, so think like folk, singer-songwriter, or country music, they encourage focus on lyrics, while rhythm or melody-driven genres like EDM, jazz, or classical often draw attention to musicality over words. Listeners tend to develop habits based on their preferred genres, which can actually reinforce whether lyrics or melody dominate their listening experience. Cultural background also plays a role. So, in societies where storytelling and verbal expression are highly valued, listeners may gravitate towards lyrics over melody. And in a similar way, comprehension also matters. So, listeners who are fluent in the language of the song, they can appreciate the more subtleties, the wordplay, and the narrative nuance, creating perhaps a stronger personal connection to the lyrics. And on the other hand, people who don't understand the lyrics, they might still respond to the emotional tone of the voice or melody, showing that connection to music can operate on all of these different levels. So, whether you prioritize lyrics or melody depends on a combination of emotional sensitivity, cultural and linguistic background, genre habits, and individual personality traits. Lyrics may resonate most with those seeking emotional validation, narrative depth, or self-reflection, while others are drawn to the raw, immediate pleasure of melody and rhythm. Understanding these differences helps explain why music affects people so uniquely, and why a single song can be interpreted in such different ways by different listeners. I think it's amazing. Now, certain song lyrics, they just have this uncanny ability to lodge themselves into our minds, becoming more than just words. They become part of our emotional landscape. But what makes these lyrics so memorable? Well, research and songwriting practices point to several key factors. One of the most significant trends in contemporary music is the increasing simplicity and repetitiveness of lyrics. Studies have shown that pop music lyrics have become simpler and easier to comprehend over time, with a decrease in lexical complexity and an increase in repetition. And this trend is not just a stylistic choice, but actually a strategic one. Repetition, especially in choruses, enhances memorability and emotional impact. So, for example, think about the repetitive chorus of We Are the Champions by Queen. It's made it this enduring anthem, easily recalled and emotionally resonant for listeners. Songwriters also often employ poetic devices to add depth and resonance to their lyrics. Metaphors and imagery create vivid pictures in the listener's mind, while rhyme and rhythm contribute to the musicality and the flow of the song. The rhyme as reason effect suggests that rhyming phrases are perceived as more truthful and agreeable, which is super interesting, and that enhances their emotional appeal and memorability. Now, lyrics that tap into universal emotions such as love, heartbreak, rebellion, or hope, they also tend to resonate more deeply with listeners. Research indicates that emotionally charged lyrics are more likely to be remembered and can even influence our emotional states. There was actually an interesting psycholinguistic study done of Perfect by Ed Sheeran, which actually found that specific word choices and sentence structures can evoke strong emotional responses from listeners. These emotional resonant lyrics, they often become shorthand for shared human experiences, allowing listeners to connect with the song on a personal level. And some song lyrics, they transcend their original context and become part of this cultural lexicon. Lines like Don't Stop Believin' from Journey or Let It Be by the Beatles have become shorthand for perseverance and acceptance. These iconic lines are often quoted in various contexts, from motivational speeches to social media posts, demonstrating their lasting impact and memorability. And at any moment, a song can become a cultural phenomenon because of a lyric that just sticks with people and really just represents where society is at as a whole. I've done an entire episode of this, but thinking about short form content in the world that we're living in today and how songs and lyrics are often taken out of context for TikTok and Instagram reels and used for this purpose of storytelling. I think it's such a prime example of how lyrics play a role in cultural phenomena in society. It's so new as well, so it's so fascinating to watch it happen in real time, really, and I think it's something that we're going to be studying in the future. We already have started studying it, actually. It's a really just fascinating movement. Now, I want to talk about something equally as interesting. I think we all have those people around us that are kings and queens of misinterpreting lyrics or mixing up lyrics. And even when we think we know a song inside out, lyrics can surprise us or confuse us entirely. Maybe you're one of those people that loves to sing the wrong lyrics at the top of your lungs. Maybe you don't even know that what you're singing is wrong. And that's fine too, whatever makes you feel good. But this is actually a common phenomenon. So misheard lyrics are actually known as Mondegreens, and it's a widespread and fascinating phenomenon that was coined in 1954 by a woman named Sylvia Wright. And she misheard a line in a Scottish ballad as a child, and that's the kind of origin story here. So she recalled hearing the lyrics, "They hae slain the Earl of Moray and laid him on the green," as "They hae slain the Earl of Moray and Lady Mondegreen." And Wright's playful misinterpretation became the name for this type of lyrical mishearing, and it's basically stuck ever since. And neuroscientists explain that Mondegreens occur because our brains are constantly trying to make sense of ambiguous auditory information. When the lyrics are sung quickly, maybe with a heavy accent or layered over complex instrumentation, our auditory system may substitute what it expects to hear for what is actually sung. And this tendency demonstrates the brain's predictive nature. It fills in gaps with familiar words, patterns, or phrases, even if they're inaccurate. And Mondegreens, they can be both entertaining and frustrating. On the playful side, they inspire humor, shared storytelling, and social connection. People love swapping funny, misheard lines with friends, posting them online, or even turning them into memes. They create these moments of communal enjoyment, and mishearing becomes this kind of shared cultural joke. But on the other hand, ambiguity in lyrics can also cause frustration, especially when lyrics misinterpret songs with emotional weight. Now, research in cognitive psychology shows that linguistic ambiguity increases mental effort and attention, which may explain why our brains sometimes hear what we want to hear or interpret lyrics in ways that resonate with our own experiences. But beyond accidental mishearing, listeners often project their own meanings onto lyrics, a phenomenon linked to the reader response theory, which basically says that interpretation is co-created by the audience. Fans bring their memories, emotions, and personal narratives into songs, creating these multiple layers of meaning that extend beyond the artist's original intent. Some songwriters intentionally leave lyrics open-ended, particularly in genres like alternative rock, indie, and folk music, allowing listeners to inhabit the songs with their own experiences. This ambiguity can foster intimacy and personal connection between artist and audience. Now, as someone who loves to read the genius lyric breakdowns for songs, this definitely resonates because there are some songs where they literally do a genius video. They've broken down the meaning of the song and we know exactly why it was written and what it was about. But there's other songs that are basically just listener submissions. This is my interpretation of what this song means. And oftentimes I've looked at it myself and had a completely different interpretation. So yeah, this definitely happens a lot. But interestingly, this flexibility in interpretation may actually enhance engagement. Studies indicate that listeners who find personal meaning in ambiguous lyrics experience stronger emotional attachment and investment in the song. So a single lyric might evoke heartbreak in one person, nostalgia in another, or hope in a third, all without any change to the words themselves. And this dynamic illustrates that lyrics, they're far more than static texts. They're psychological mirrors, shaped by both the creator's intention and the listener's imagination. So, in essence, Mondegreens and interpretive flexibility highlight how the brain, emotion, and imagination interact with music. Misheard lyrics are a testament to our cognitive creativity, while the meanings that we project onto songs reveal how deeply music can connect with our personal narratives. Together, I think they just show that lyrics are never just heard. They're experienced and interpreted and lived. And that's why I love them so much. Now, I want to finish up by talking about the collective element of lyrics. Lyrics don't just reflect personal emotions, they also shape how we relate to others, express who we are, and participate in shared experiences. One of the most immediate ways this happens is through singing along, whether at a concert, karaoke, in the car, or even just at home. Singing creates a sense of participation and engagement. Psychologists have found that singing together releases oxytocin, which is, again, that trust hormone that increases bonding and social cohesion. And this effect is amplified in group settings. But even singing alone can evoke a sense of connection to this imagined community of listeners who are sharing the song with you. In this way, lyrics become tools not just for individual expression, but for social synchrony. Honestly, I don't think there's any better feeling than screaming the lyrics to your favorite song at a concert, along with 1,000 or thousands of other people. I think there's just no feeling comparable to that. You can just feel that you're surrounded by people who resonate with the music as much as you do. And just the act of screaming out lyrics, there's just something so powerful about it. And beyond live performance, lyrics are a powerful medium for identity expression in digital spaces. Now, I did briefly touch on this, but on platforms like Instagram, TikTok, even Twitter, people quote song lines in captions, posts, memes to communicate mood, personality, or just what they're going through. Sharing a lyric can be a form of self-representation, signaling taste, cultural knowledge, or emotional state to your network. Studies in digital media psychology actually suggest that this practice does strengthen social ties, as other users are resonating with a sentiment, responding to quotes, or even adding their own interpretations. So lyrics here, they really serve as the modern language of identity, allowing individuals to articulate who they are without this whole lengthy explanation. And lyrics also have a crucial role in collective emotional experiences. So think about protest songs, anthems, and widely recognized ballads that illustrate how words can unify people around shared feelings and causes. Protest lyrics, for instance, they articulate collective outrage, hope, and solidarity, transforming personal emotions into collective action. Now, I did touch on this in episode 6. I talked about the power of protest music and dove into some examples as well. So, if you're interested in diving a bit more into that, I suggest you go ahead and listen to that episode. But similarly, national or cultural anthems also allow large groups of people to synchronize emotion, fostering this sense of pride, belonging, or resilience. Even songs about heartbreak or personal struggle, they can become communal. When listeners recognize that others have experienced the same emotions, lyrics act as a bridge between private feelings and shared understanding. This collective engagement is supported by research in social psych, which finds that shared emotional experiences enhance group cohesion and empathy. And finally, lyrics as identity and connection also influence how we interpret and internalize social norms and values. The lines that we adopt as personal mantras or rallying cries, whether from breakup ballads, motivational anthems, or protest songs, they often shape our sense of self and guide how we relate to others. So, in essence, lyrics become more than entertainment. They're social tools that help us navigate identity, build community, and experience emotions together. Through singing, sharing, or collective listening, words and music create meaningful connection, demonstrating that the power of lyrics extends far beyond the individual listener. It's deeply social, cultural, and relational. But that brings us to the end of today's episode on the world of lyrics. Let me know, are you a lyrics person? Do you find yourself listening closely to the lyrics of every song, or do you more go for the sound of the music? And what are some of your favorite lyrics of all time? Something that sticks with you, has shaped you, or really just resonates with how you're feeling right now? Let me know over on Instagram or Threads at the Sound Mind Talks. I always love to have such amazing discussions with you after episodes and just during the week. So yeah, please do reach out. Thank you so much for joining me today on The Sound Mind. If you've enjoyed this episode, please rate or review on wherever you're listening and share it with someone who loves music or is a lyrics lover just as much as me, I guess. Don't forget to follow us and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. But until next time, keep listening, keep reflecting, and I'll see you on The Sound Mind.